Well, it was fun to match up with Steph. I mean, we guarded each other plenty of times in practice with Team USA camps and All-Star games. So, yeah, it hurts to be on the other side of one of his flurries. Guy got hot at the end and made some ridiculous shots. I know I've been on the other end, and it sucks.
One of the biggest games so far this year was Klay Thompson returning to Golden State for the first time in a completely different uniform. Now, there seemed to be a bit of friendly tension between Klay and Steph before the game, but the actual game went pretty well for all parties, if you ask me. Golden State protected home court. Steph reminded Klay what he's missing. Draymond talked about it and gave us the backstory after the game. And even Klay Thompson, he played pretty well. We know this game meant a lot to Klay Thompson because Golden State basically told this man, we no longer need your services, and he's the only one out of that historical big three that actually had to find a new home. Against Golden State, like I said, Klay Thompson played well, but since that game, Klay has actually proven Golden State very, very right. Going back to last year, Klay's biggest problem to me is the fact that he's so damn streaky and he's not as reliable. Directly after that game, Klay went 6 for 17, and then 4 for 7, and then 1 for 11, and then 6 for 15, and then 0 for 8, and then 5 for 12. That's the biggest problem with Klay Thompson now. He's extremely streaky, and I believe in his mind, he's still Klay Thompson. In Klay Thompson's championship prime, from 2014 all the way up to 2022, he was shooting 17 times a night, and Golden State gave him room for error as a volume shooter. No one even averaged 20 shots a night, and they always led the NBA in assists. Well, in Dallas, yes, he's going to get great looks. He's playing beside Luka and Kyrie, and they generate those easily, but they come in very much smaller samples. This year, as expected, Klay is shooting the least he's ever has, and he's never really been a high usage player, but he has by far his lowest usage rate. Klay Thompson's officially at that stage where he's a role player, and there's nothing wrong with that. He can still affect the game with his deep shooting and his championship medal, but with how streaky he is at this age and this stage of his career, he's a role player, and Golden State was 1000% right. Today's video is sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook. All the holidays are here, which means all the sports are in full effect. And DraftKings wants to make sure you get the most out of your sports watching experience, and they're back with an offer you really can't miss. All new customers have to do is bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. If you're lost as to what to do with that $150 that you possibly won, try DraftKings Same Game Parlays, where you could combine multiple bets from the exact same game for a shot at a much bigger payout. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy. All the sports are here. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers sign up using my promo code Swishout, place just $5 on any wager, and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code Swishout, only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
We don't know what our identity right now, me and Mike was talking about, I think we soft as hell, like as a team, internally. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not to the other team, but like internally, like we soft. Like, we can't talk to each other.
The Timberwolves might actually be in the worst situation of any contending team. I say that because unlike teams that we highlight, like Milwaukee, Philly, the Clippers, the Lakers, etc., their best player is still very, very young. Anthony Edwards is currently on his second contract, which likely means by the end of this contract, he'll just now be touching his prime. As most players do, 26, 27 years old. If you don't impress him in said window, he can walk. This isn't the 70s, 80s, 90s anymore. In the modern day era, especially as a small market team, you have a specific window to impress the stars you draft, and if you don't, they can leave. Trading away Ant's best friend on the team after your best year in like 20 years and your team immediately plummets, I don't know how that's going to age. Now, at that time, I definitely understood the trade. They wanted to expose Cat's contract, whatever. But Julius Randle was always an extremely odd fit to me, especially beside Rudy Gobert. And so far, it's been as odd as advertised. Julius Randle is just not great defensively, and he's extremely ball dominant offensively. That's the polar opposite of Cat stylistically. Last year, Minnesota's identity was their defense, and this year, they've definitely taken a step back. Minnesota all last season was one of the best teams guarding the paint. This year has basically been a layup line. Also last year, what made them so dominant, to me at least, was their size and how that translated to their defense and how that translated to how dominant they were on the glass. That also helped them offensively, where they weren't great, but it gave them more possessions. Well, this year, they're not even great on the boards. A lot of that is because, well, they don't stop teams like they used to. Last year in the playoffs, when they swept Phoenix, you know one of the biggest reasons they swept Phoenix like they did? Because they absolutely destroyed them on the glass. They led the entire playoffs on the glass. That was part of their identity and what made them so tough and rugged, to me at least. This year, they just don't have that. Also this year, I'm not even a fan of their offense, and specifically the style of their offense. Ant said the player that inspired him the most during the Olympics was Stephen Curry. And damn, did this man not lie. This year, Ant is shooting 11 3-pointers a night, and he's making them, but that's a lot. Last year, Minnesota didn't really shoot a lot of threes, and when they did, they were very efficient. That's because basically everyone that shot them, excluding Ant, ironically enough, were all damn near 40% three-point shooters. Now, losing Cat is basically only Ant. Also, what makes Ant so special to me is he feels like the ultimate three-level scorer. He's very athletic, and this man can truly score from anywhere. He just always had to find that sweet spot balance. This year, it just feels like it's way less of that. Last season, 23% of Ant's shots were at the rim, and he even had a nice balance between mid-range, etc. 34% of his shots were threes. Now, 16% of his shots are at the rim, and 53% of his shots are threes now. Ant is obviously a top 10 scorer this year. Out of everybody that scores in the top 15 this year, Ant is averaging the lowest free throws out of anyone. Again, Ant is making them, so it's not terrible, but it just feels like losing Cat disrupted their offense, their chemistry, and they only have control of one of their first-round picks for the next 7 years. I don't know about that trade no more. The Miami Heat are the most complacent contenders I've ever seen, and now I think it's going to bite them on the ass. How can you have so much success, damn near for half a decade, yet you do so little to ever enhance what you've already built? I don't understand that. The process to me is over, but at least they tried. Boston, they went out and got Porzingis. The Knicks, after their best year, they went out and got Cat. The Bucks did too much, but they got Drew Holiday, and then they got Dame. The Miami Heat's best players 5 years ago was Tyler Hero, Bam, and Jimmy. Right now, it's still Tyler Hero, Bam, and Jimmy. To me, it was very fitting to see Dame the other night go crazy on Miami because it's very symbolic of what Miami is. Ever since losing Bron 10 years ago, they've been way too reliant on culture and not talent. I might be wrong because I've said this before, but their championship window, to me at least, has closed, and that's because Pat Riley has not taken enough risk. Love him, hate him, say he doesn't have any rings, whatever. The Chris Paul effect is 1000% real. Now, before I even get to Chris Paul, I have to talk about Wemby, a player that I absolutely love, but it feels like he leaves a lot of meat on the bone in real life, and he does it on the court as well. As great as Wemby is, and even this year, he's having a great season, I understand, but he just shoots way too many threes. I'm not saying right now he has to be these guys, but he 1000% has their potential. You can laugh at Giannis and call him run and dunk, whatever. Giannis is averaging 32 points this year on 60% from the field. Nikola Jokic is averaging 30, shooting 57% from the field. Those are the two best players on the planet. Wemby, sometime very soon, is going to be right there with those guys. He just has to use his size. The three best bigs in the world, they're all extremely efficient and they feast inside. Currently, Wemby is shooting more threes than twos. I don't think anybody with his size and skill set should ever shoot sub 50%. And the reason I'm emphasizing it is because it's kind of getting worse. Last year, 30% of Wemby's shots were actually at the rim, and we complained then. This year, now, with Chris Paul on the team, it's dropped to 23%. Last year, 30% of Wemby's shots were three-pointers. This year, 50% of his shots are now threes. I'll never love that. Who do we naturally compare Wemby to? And we always say he can be this guy times 10. Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, from the first time he stepped on the court, has always been one of the most efficient scorers ever. As great as a shooter as we know Kevin Durant to be, he's never even shot 7 threes a night for a season. He's never done that. Wemby is shooting 9 right now. I absolutely believe Wemby is going to be an all-time great player. He's very young, but he has to find that balance because he's way too tall and skilled to be living from deep, and he's shooting 33%. Now, Chris Paul, if you want to see his legacy or what he's been great at for the duration of his entire career, look at teams before he got there and look at teams once he got there. This is simply what he does. The Spurs right now are 1 game above 500. You know who has the highest plus minus on their entire team? It's Chris Paul, the oldest player in the league damn near. And lastly, the East is just so much worse than the West, and it feels like it's even getting worse. Obviously, we already knew this. The All-Star games, like we already knew this, but it's not even funny or even close anymore. The West has double the amount of double-digit wins currently than the Eastern Conference. Adam is making all these constant changes to the NBA. Some of them feel a bit unnecessary. Eliminating conferences might actually be the one that is. If you guys like this video, don't just leave the video. Like the video and comment what you might want to add. There will be a part 2. So if it wasn't in part 1, it will likely be there. Follow my social media sites, turn on post notifications, do all that great stuff, guys. And until next time, as always, stay tuned for part 2.